Well, I'm 59 years now, and when I started prospecting I was 17, and between 17 and now I can guarantee that I've spent at least 20 years in the bush full-time prospecting and making a living at it. It's like a different world you're living in when you're prospecting, the freedom of it. I dredged this area, it probably was about 5 foot square. There was just bits of gold everywhere. It was just loaded with gold. Like, this is what dredging's about, right? And this is what the old miners were chasing. So yeah, I was always interested at the time with dredging. Like, I always heard of these guys over in Gippsland that, would go sucking up the gravel in the river and get pabloads of coffee jars full of gold and this sort of stuff. I was always interested. I used to dive when I was a kid. And yeah, just something in the back of my mind, I always wanted to have a crack at that. And I was up in Wedderburn one day. We were still doing lots of detecting, and we were getting bits of gold in different spots, but nothing like that, just very minimal. We were very lucky. And now, look back, we were really lucky, But went to Wedderburn detecting, and at the time there was a gold shop there that sold mining equipment. Walked in the shop and there's a 6-inch dredge sitting in there, and I'm like, ooh, I like the look of that. So yeah, I started asking a few questions about it. Never dredged in my life before. Thought, wow, that's awesome, and that. So I bought it. I went back home. I didn't have, I only had my car. I couldn't put it in the car. Pretty big machine. And yeah, me and Dad come up and we picked it up, brought it back home. And on the block where Mum and Dad lived, they had a dam. So I've got it in there and floated on the water. Never dived with air compressors or hooker system in my life. So I set it up in the dam, start up, the regulator was working, and I'm in the water. And I'm sort of got my goggles on and I put my head under. And oh, it works. It works. I'm not breathing water. So I thought that's and like the dam water's real murky, so you go down that far and it's black. So I sort of slid in the dam a bit more, and I had my weight belt on and all that, and I was just going to have a bit more. I was just testing the water, literally, with this. And I went in, and then all of a sudden, the clay, I slipped on the clay, and I just slid, and the water went from orange to pitch black to icy cold, and I'm down there going, and then I stopped at the bottom, like this, and I thought, then I sort of calmed down, and then after about 2 or 3 minutes, I was, so yeah, that was a bit of a crash course in there. That's how I did it. I just slid in. I wasn't going to land on that, but I ended up down the bottom. So yeah, I'm clawing my way back up. In the clay. So yeah, I thought, there was a creek that ran through Smilesdale called the Smiles Creek. I thought, let's get in there and see if there's any gold. So yeah, went down there, did a bit of dredging in a hole there. I'd never done it before, and there was no water flow, so it was murky. So I'm just going through the gravel and just seeing what happens. You know what I mean? And you could sort of get down, and I could feel the bedrock, and yeah, I did a few areas in there. Yeah, I got a little bit of fine gold, and I found a couple of relics in there, in the creek. But of course, Dad being Dad, he was always, he's always behind you, like, you got to go to Gippsland. That's where they get the gold. That's where they get it, not here. So they get it at Stecton over there dredging. So he researched up the Nicholson River, and it was all ferrous for nearly its entire course, which is about 30, 40 kilometres of the neck that was gold bearing, going by the research and that he done and what's in the books. And Deptford was an area there where, it was very noted for the gold. So we thought, that's it, we'll go and have a crack at dredging over there. So we got the full drive, got the caravan, the shower, generator, everything, and off we went. Got to Bairnsdale, stocked up on supplies, and went up. It was about an hour and a half, 40-minute drive to get to Deptford. It was very rough country up there. Got there, never been there before, and on the way in we were driving along a ridge, and there was a camp there on the side, and I could see all these dredging pipes and stuff, and I thought, oh, we're in the right spot now. This is dredging country, yee! So I was really excited. I thought, yeah, this is going to be interesting. And then when we got down to camp, we set up. The next day, a bloke come driving past in a white four-wheel drive. He pulled up. He said, "Oh, you're going to do some dredging on the Nick?" And we said, "Yeah." His name was John. He said, "I'll tell you." He said, "The Nick's got some really good gold, mate." And he showed me a jar. He had a jar about that high, that round, about that full. It wasn't like real nuggety gold, but it was coarse, you know, flat, surfboard shaped bits, really. I think he had about 3 ounces. And I'm like, my heart's going, oh, this is exciting, because I hadn't put the dredge in. So yeah, went upstream. The next day, popped it in, and so beautiful. I could see everything. The water was flowing. You could see the gravel. You could see the bedrock exposed. So I started dredging in there, and yeah, I was finding little bits of gold. You know, just the odd bit. You know, I dredged the first day. I think I got about 1 gram. You know, which is not much when you consider you're there all day. And then the next week or so, I was just doing the same thing. And you could see that there was old bits of rusty steel in the cracks and that in the bedrock. So, like, I think it had actually been dug by the early miners. Well, I know now it was, but when I was there at the time. But yeah, I was just getting bits and pieces. It was so exciting to actually, like, you know, oh, this bit, you know, there's another bit, you know, but it was just scattered random. I think it was 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks we were there. And I moved the dredge up a bit further. And there was a big quartz vein coming across, and it was like had all these pyrites, like it was full of pyrites, you know. So I thought I'll put a bit of, and it went down below the gravel, and I thought I'll put a bit of a hole in there. Well, as soon as I hit the bottom, it was just loaded with gold. Like, I mean, there was no fly shit here. These were like, I think the smallest bit would have been 0.5 gram. The biggest bit was 0.5 ounce. And it was just chock-a-block of gold. Like, I was just, but when I first started dredging it, I was still like sucking away there, and I'm like, wow. And I stopped the dredge. I only dredged for about like 10 minutes. I dropped the box and I looked in the first river and you just see all these bits. And I'm like, wow. And I put it up. I panned it off. Dad's over there. I'm going, Dad, and like this. He said, yeah, what? And then I come over with the dish and I got out and I said, have a look at this. And I went, and he went, well, I won't say what he said. and his jaw dropped again. Yeah, and it was beautiful. Like, it was probably about 12 or 13 grams of really quite coarse gold. And I'm like, wow. He said, well, get back out there. All right, okay. And I said, I'll go down when I get out there. And if it keeps going, I'll come up and I'll go like this. He said, all right. So I went out there and fired the machine up, down I went, put the box on there and I went. And yeah, it was just loaded. I come up. Whoa! I was there probably most of the rest of that afternoon, and I weighed up 5 ounces for that one day, and I thought, this is what dredging's about, right? And this is what the old miners were chasing. You know, you could see it. You know, when you see all them shafts, even when it's not in a riverbed or an old riverbed or a gully or a lead, when they went to bottom and then there's another shaft, that's what they were looking for, and that's what they were getting. So I was like, wow, you know, and to actually see it, like to detect a bit, that's one thing, but to actually see the gold and follow it in the river, and it was the same thing. You had a reef full of pyrites, okay, and some of the flat bits, like the bigger bits, like the 0.5 ounce bit, which was the biggest, it was smooth on the top. Like, it was smooth as, but when you flipped it over, it was all pitty on the bottom, because that bit of gold's just sat there. Everything's passed over it, and it's the same with all the big nuggets. There's a lot of big nuggets like the hand of faith. You'll see the finger part is smooth as. Now, it takes a lot to get something smooth like that, but the other side is rough. Like, all them big nuggets, they don't flip over, you know. I mean, they're pretty heavy. So, you know, you've got a reef running through the river, so you've got to just put everything back at a higher level. You know, you've got to think, well, this river was, you know, 20, 30 feet up there, and the gold was in that vein. Maybe it might have been scattered through it in different spots. There was probably a lot of fine gold that maybe has gone downstream. But as that river's cut down and weathered down on that vein, all that gold that was in it stayed on the vein itself. So when I dredged it, you sort of get to the point and there's nothing more to get. But if you could actually, say, open that vein up and then dig down on it, you might find as you dig down, you get a bit in it there and a bit over there and a bit over here, a bit over there. But you get all that weather down in one spot, and there it all is, if that makes sense. Yeah. So once again, like the hill, you've obviously had a big make of gold in a spot, the river's cut through it. This is the same thing, the reef's there, and you think, oh, that's a good crevice. The gold's come down and dropped into that nice rough crevice. But it hasn't. It's actually come out of that vein. And that's something that I learnt early in the piece. So, yeah, and the Nicholson River was a really good river. I dredged there for 6 months. Went back to Castlemaine. I dredged the Loddon River there. When I was dredging on the Loddon River, one of the patches there was quite rich, and you could easily put the pan in on the face because you're dredging and you're sucking the gravel. You've got like a little face, and yeah, you get a really nice show of colour. Of course, Mum and Dad being interested, Mum come out one day. I said, "Do you want to come out? I'll give you some nice dirt to pan." She said, "Oh, well, that'd be fun," because she loves panning. So you come down, she's got her waders on, she comes down, I guided down the river to where I was. I said, you just stand sort of in the river, because under the water I had like a 2-foot face where I'd been dredging, and I was taking that material and working my way up. So she stood up on the top. I got the pan for her, went down, dived down the bottom, got the gravel, I gave it to her, and she's like panning the way. And it was good stuff. Like, it was not, she just had to pan it. She didn't have to worry about digging it out of cracks and because I was just going and getting it for her. So she was doing that, and I'm continuing on my way. And then I went a bit that side, and then I gave a few more pans and that. And then all of a sudden I just heard this sort of noise, and I got up, and there she is. She was in the water up to here. The waders completely filled in. I dredged around her. I left her in a little island. I'm not thinking I was going that way and I was going this way. And I left her alone. Of course, she went to walk to the bank and went, "Way!" So, yeah, I nearly drowned Mum, but that's okay. She survived, so it's all good. But the Loddon River was had a lot of work done by the early miners because it did slow up in the summer. The spots that I worked had been worked, but they just missed a lot of gold. It must have been very rich, I was dredging one day in a hole downstream from one of the patches there, and I put a hole in, because what you do is you just get in and just put a hole in, see what you got, and then go from there, go across. Put a hole in, went down through a lot of sand, and then I got a bit of gravel, and I got all this thick gluggy. You could squeeze it through your fingers. It was like gluggy clay, and and like with the dredge, you're sucking it up and it's going to whoomp into it, whoomp like that. Anyway, when I got down to the bottom of that, there was probably 3 foot of that. I hit this real slaty bottom, and it was rough as buggery, and it had all been dug. It had all been picked. It was sharp and stuff like that, and there was virtually no gold. So I sort of opened out a bit on it, and went sort of, and I found like I thought it was a stick, and I followed along, and I sort of went along, and then there was something on the end of it, and I thought, what is that, and I brought it up, and it was an actual pick, like the old style with the blunt end, the full end like that, which they used in the early days because they were swinging in them tight little shafts, and they didn't want that other end. And it had the handle attached, and the only reason it had the handle attached is because it had been preserved in this clay. So what would have happened is they were working that bed, smashing the bedrock. They must have downed tools for the day. There's probably been a flood all around this area. Has all been slooshed. The floods come in, all the clay and silt and sludge has come in and filled into the hole and settled, and then solidified like soft jelly clay, and the pick was there and it's preserved it because it was like encased in clay, and that's why the handle was there. And it'd probably be one of the few early picks that's that's probably still got the handle. And I'd probably, dating the area, Like that area would have been mined in about the 1860s. So, it's pretty unusual to get a pick like that with a handle attached, I think. Another area where I dredged was the McIver Creek at Heathcote. That was a very good river, or creek. There was some not bad gold in there, and I got a really nice patch in there. And it was funny because I was camped there with all the gear. Dad was there, as he always was, nearby somewhere. He was never far away. And he went to town for a couple of days because at the time we lived in Bendigo. So I just stayed there and kept dredging. And the next day I woke up, it was overcast. It was a drizzly, miserable day. And I had to put on the wetsuit, which was wet, which is probably one of the worst things about dredging is getting up in the morning and putting on a wet suit. That was not much fun, especially when it was frozen. Because in sometimes I was dredging, it was like frozen, and I used to have a bucket, a galvanised bucket, which I put on the ring, the cooker, and boil the water, and then I'd pop the wetsuit in there, and the cold ice on the wetsuit with the warm water would just get it at a nice temperature. So I had it worked out pretty well for them days. And I had a hot water system as well. Like when there's ice on the river bank on the vegetation, it's a frosty morning, you're going dredging. Thought just even a 7mm wetsuit won't keep you warm. Like that's cold. Like you put your hand in there for 5 minutes, you can't keep it. So I actually had a hot water system which I ran off the dredge. Used to go down between my hood and the vat, and I'll sort of fill out with hot water like the Michelin Man. It'd come out, that's what I felt like in there. But it was good, and it warmed up all the extremities around your lungs, your heart and all that. And with your gloves, your boots, you could be in there dredging, and there's ice on the edge of the river because it's such a frosty morning. It was pretty amazing. But there was one thing about that, is there's one part of your body that's not covered, and there's a little strip that goes around here, around your goggles. And I tell you what, you go in that water, and that just feels like it's on fire until it goes completely numb. And I'll tell you a story about the ring of fire around your face from dredges. But cold water. Anyway, it wasn't too bad a day. It was just miserable and overcast. And sometimes them days you get in the bottom of the river, it's dull, it's dark, it's miserable. I called them gloomy days, dredging, gloomy. But I still loved it. And I got in this hole. It was a new hole. I'd worked the hole before. I'd found gold, but nothing fantastic. It was just your average sort of gold. Got in this hole, and I thought I'll put a couple of holes in. So I put a couple of holes in. Because you're always working upstream when you're dredging, because you've got the clear water coming down. Nothing. It'd actually been dredged. Someone had been in that back part hole, was all dredged. I went up a little bit further, probably about another 15, 20 feet, put another hole in. The ground had been worked, because you could see bits of steel and you could see the bedrock. You can tell it's, been dug and smashed. But there's, little bits and pieces in there, like just the odd bit here and there. But it was nothing worth working. And by that time, it wasn't a big hole. It was about half up the hole, and I thought, I'll have a break. So I'm sitting there on the bank, had me cup of coffee, having a smoke, and I'm looking at the hole, and I'm thinking, this is not looking too promising, this hole. But anyway, so I had me a cup of tea, went back in, got the dredge fired up. I pulled it forward another 20 feet. There's a bit of bedrock exposed on the bottom. You got to probably remember I'm in 5 foot of water. There's maybe 1 or 2 foot of gravel to the bedrock. So, it's sometimes you get a bit of bedrock, you can sort of go from there and use that. And I went across, and it had been worked, and then I just hit this patch of ground. It was probably about that high, and it was just packed quartzy wash, tight packed, And as soon as I hit it, there was just bits of gold everywhere. It was just loaded with gold, and I was picking them up, and oddly enough, it looked orange. The gold looked orange, and when I picked it up, and the pieces you could pick up, and when I rubbed it, the orange rubbed off. It was like sort of some film on it. I don't know, but it was beautiful, brilliant once you'd done that. But it actually had this orange film on it. I've never seen that before. Maybe that's because it was old virgin, original packed wash that's never been dug. I don't know. And I dredged this area. It probably was about 5 foot square. It was probably in the deepest part of the hole. And it was, as I said, about that deep, and it was just gold everywhere. And when I say gold, I mean it was just coarse gold, you know, I think the biggest bit would have been about 7 grams. The smallest bit would have been maybe half a gram, and that was it. There was no fine gold. And I just seen it everywhere. And it took me 15 minutes to dredge up. Couldn't see anything. Completely cleaned up. And I'm like, wow, wait till I look at the box. What the box is going to look like on that light. So I got underneath. I dropped the box because you got to drop. My dredge had this sluice box underneath. It was a subsurface dredge, but some have them on top. So I dropped the box, and I'm looking at the first 2 riffles, and there's just gold everywhere, just loaded. Just the first riffles were just yellow. Like I'm like, oh, this is exciting. So I put that in the pan, panned it down. It was such coarse gold. It took me about a minute to get it to pure gold. You know, because it was so coarse. And I thought, wow. So I got out the river, went up the camp, weighed it up. That was about 4 ounces. And I thought, wow, you know, my gloomy day was now really not gloomy anymore. And just amazing experience, you know. Dad came back the next day. And of course I had this little white bottle with all this gold in it. Well, I didn't want to leave it in the caravan. So I took it down, filled it up with water. And when I went back in to dredging, I just put it down on the side there and I got it later on. Dad come in the next day, said, oh, how'd you go? And I said, oh, I did all right, Dad. And I had the bottle there and I walked up and I went, because it's pretty heavy stuff, that gold, especially in the jar. And I went like that to him. And he went, what? And I tipped it out and I put it on top. And he went, his jaw dropped again. Yeah, he was like, wow, you know, thought he would have loved to do the dredging, but he couldn't dive. Like Dad couldn't dive, but he would have loved to. I'd love to have done it. And when I was dredging on the Nicholson, there was one spot there we had a 3-inch dredge on a tube, and I had the 6-inch dredge. Where I was dredging, it was probably about, I don't know, 4 or 5 foot of water, and only about a foot of gravel, and that was when the main run of gold was. And then the bedrock come up slowly, and Dad was over here with his range. And it was just, and he's got the goggles, snorkel, and he's just reaching down. He could just, over here, you know, another 2 foot, but he couldn't do it. He couldn't reach. You know, thinking back, maybe I should have just got him extension on the nozzle, but I didn't think of it at the time. But anyway, he would have loved it. Some of the other things I found when dredging is when I was in the Nicholson. This was another gloomy morning. It was overcast. It was dull. You finish dredging, you get up in the morning, you fire the dredge up, put the goggles, make sure all your goggles are right so they don't fog up. And then down I go, follow the hose down to the hole. And of course, overnight, you've got to imagine you're sucking all this gravel with the dredge, but all the bigger rock, because the diameter of my suction was a 6-inch. So all the bigger rock, you have to just toss them aside. So what you end up with is a face where you're working the original ground, and then you'll just have all these piles of rubble of big rocks, and the hose go into the face. And overnight, what happens is because you know there's quite a bit of sediment, and it just settles. The sediment settles on all the rocks and your hose and everything. My hose was white, but quite often in the morning, you know, you could hardly see the white because of just the silt. So I followed it down, and I got near to the nozzle, and then it was just, couldn't see nothing. And I thought, what the hell was that? You know, I'm like, what was that? You know, thought there's something down here with me. So, and it like freaked me out actually, and I'm like sitting there, lying there for a while. And then the water started to clear, and I'm looking around, and there was 2 big rocks over here. And looking straight at me, about that far from my face, was this huge head. And on the other side of the rocks was this huge eel. And he was a monster, like he was like this. And he was looking through the rocks. He didn't realise that I could see the rest of his body on the other side, obviously, and you could see his fins. He was just sitting in his fins, going like there. And he was just looking at me. So I got the nozzle, because if he goes up the pipe, he's just going to go straight through the box and out the back. So I got the nozzle, and I got the nozzle like this. And I slowly went up to his head. So his head was here. And I got to about here, and he must have felt the water. And then it was, and I've never seen him after that. But yeah, that freaked me out. You know, and you see Like freshwater lobsters, I've seen them up there. And when the weather gets really hot, you know, you're dredging in the river, you know, you've got all these branches hanging over right into the water, and you're going underneath there on a hot day in the middle of the day, and you just see all these trout just sitting there, you know what I mean, in the cool water, just sitting there. You know, no wonder it's hard to catch, because you're never going to get the lure in there, you know, unless till they come out when it cools down, obviously in the morning or the night. But you just see them sitting in there, you know, and some of them are good size, you know. So some of the things you see in the water is quite incredible. You do have some funny moments when you're dredging. I found some interesting moments while I'm out there. I've seen floods on the river. But one incident that did happen was I was dredging, got down, started to dredge up about 9 o'clock. And by 10 o'clock, the water went dirty. And I thought, I got out, looked, and I thought, someone's obviously dredging upstream. So I walked upstream. I went up about 300 metres. There's the motor running. And I'm like, okay. So I walked down, there's these two blokes dredging with two dredgers, and I walked down and they were under the water, just bubbles coming up. And then one of them popped up. So he comes up, turns the machines off, and, how you going? Yeah, not bad. What is up to? Where you from? And I said, is you here long or just, weekend or, And they said, we're going to be here a while. And I'm like, okay. I said, because, I'm just around the corner, like downstream. I said, and I can't do anything because the water's dirty. I said, like, you're supposed to be, there was a 500 metre gap between dredges. That's why they had that, so that you didn't get that. And they said, okay. I said, because I can't dredge. And they said, okay. I said, how about you guys, you guys start early and go to 12, and then I'll start at 12 and go the afternoon. Or other way around, I'll start early and you guys start later. I said, that way I'll get me 4 hours, because when you're dredging, you do get 4 or 5 hours underwater with the diving gear, you get burnt out. You physically just go that you've had enough. There must be something to do with just the diving side of it. You never get the bends because you're only in about 5 or 6 foot of water, but it's just something. So they said, okay, we'll start early. You start early, and then we'll start late. So that's all good. No problem. Went down next morning, dredged for an hour, dirty water. Went back up, and I thought, these guys, like, they're not really showing much respect. So I said, look, I can't dredge down there. I said, I talked to you yesterday, and they said, you said you were going to do it. And they said, yeah, okay, we'll do it tomorrow. That's what they said. And I said, all right, we'll give them one more day. And the next morning, I think it went an extra hour and a half, 2 hours. I think I got 3 hours. So they definitely started later. And then it got dirty. And I walked up to them and I watched them, and there they are dredging, and there's their beautiful clear water coming down on them, and there's more dirty water going down to me. So I thought, bugger it. So I went back, grabbed my shovel, walked back up, went about 100 feet in front of them, into the bank, and I just shovelled into the mud. And I went just shoveling that mud into the river, just kept shoveling it in. The more the better. Just kept shoveling it in, and then I looked at the river and I thought, that looks good. And then I walked back down and I sat on the bank and I was watching them. And they're dredging away there, and then I see this black water start to come down. And then one of them pops his head up. Like, he looks around, and the other one pops his head up like, what's going on, And then they see me standing there, and I had my shovel, and they shut the machine down. I said, well, I can tell you right now. I said, if I can't dredge down there, and I was here first, you guys aren't going to dredge here, because I'll stay here all day shoveling that. And yeah, we sorted it out. So yeah, sometimes you meet some funny characters. But in the old days, I mean, there was characters, you know, the people from all over the world, like different nationalities. You had like crooks and people that are not really respectable, and you had respectable people, and they're all out in an environment where there's very little law, you know, and out in the bush, you know, it's the same thing, you know. It's not like, you know, in town. Like modern day prospecting is just very much like the old days, you know, with the old diggers, because, you know, I read a book. It was a diary of a digger in Castlemaine. He'd come from the boat to Australia. The first place he was heading to was to the Bendigo diggings, or Mount Alexander. And then they discovered gold, I think, was down at Castlemaine, and he moved down there. And he teamed up with a few blokes as a prospecting party, and it was out near Campbell's Creek. They'd sunk a hole down about 40 feet or something as a party. They got to bottom, and they got some really good wash dirt. I think they worked it for a couple of days, and then they went down the shaft one morning because they would dig it out, stockpile it, and have it there ready. And all their wash dirt had been taken. So someone had gone down overnight, taken their good stuff. They probably, you know, mentioned, oh, yeah, everyone's good gold, and someone hears about it, and oh, yeah, I'll get a bit of that, you know. And I do believe that these guys that tried to smoke me out on the river heard about that patch that I was telling about with Dad when I got food. Yeah, because I did tell a couple of people. So anyway, they had a solution to the problem, which I thought was fantastic. I would have rated up there almost with mine. But what they did was they left some dummy wash dirt, right, with no gold in it, and they put a few shavings in the wash dirt and mixed it in. Next morning, the wash dirt was gone. I walked down to where all the water was, where they were all solution to that, and they said, bubbles, and they found them. And the actual commissioner, they told the gold commissioner, and yeah, he kicked them off the field. So I thought that's a really interesting story, that one. Yeah. Yeah, another story on the Nicholson, which is quite interesting. I was up there only about 7 or 8 months, but the people I met was quite incredible because, you know, we were all doing it full time, and there was quite a few blokes up there. There was about 6 or 7 operators, I'd reckon. And I used to go to town once a week, me and Dad. We'd go to town once a week. We'd go and do our washing at the laundromat. We'd go to Safeway. I had a 44-gallon drum on the back of the ute, fill it up with fuel for the dredge, get everything we need. And then we'd always go and have a can or two at the pub, and then you head back out bush for the week. And it was such a great lifestyle. I mean, you know, and you were making a buck out there. It was awesome. Anyway, I was at the laundromat, and there's a couple of drivers going, and this bloke comes in with a basket and starts loading, you know, some of his dry washing into the thing. And I looked at him, and he had this ring around his face. And I thought, he's a dredger. Because we all had the ring, like the ring around where the little gap between the hood of your wetsuit and the mask. It was always a red ring. I said to him, I said, you doing a bit of dredging? He said, yeah. I said, whereabouts are you? And he said, oh, I'm on the Nicholson. He said, it was him and his mate, and his name was Phil, and his other mate was Pat. Phil and Pat, I always remember him. And he got talking to me, and he said, well, where are you? I said, I'm down at Deptford, and we started talking away. And I said, he said, how are you going? I said, oh, not bad. I said, I've got one nice patch. And then he said to me, he said, well, we got one just before Christmas up there. We got 30-ounce patch. He said, we dredged $1,000 a day for 2 weeks. And I thought, wow, that's good stuff. And they were way up above me. And I remember when we first come into the area, I seen a camp, the cabin with the hoses, and actually that was their camp, because I didn't realise at the time. And they were camped, there's 2 of them, and they were dredging. One was dredging from daybreak to lunchtime, and the other one would go from lunchtime to dark. Like they were doing like a teamwork, so they were really covering some ground. And he told me, he said, when he got the patch, his mum lived in Queensland, and they lived right up on the top ridge, they were camping, and about 1 kilometre from them was a helipad for firefighting and stuff like that. And he flew his mum down from Queensland to Bairnsdale. He got her to Bairnsdale, and then he hired a chopper and flew her up to the helipad for Christmas dinner. So, yeah, and he had Christmas dinner up in the bush with his mum. So I thought that was a really awesome thing. And I never seen them after that. They were up there, but yeah, it was sort of, they were going a different way into me. There was another bloke that used to come past our camp every day. He was going up. He was from Bruce, and he was a Welshman. We called him the Welshman. And he used to bring his dredge in every day, set it up, unpack it, and bring it back every day. Like a lot extra work. But he used to like to go home. Well, I suppose he only lived at Bruton, which is only about like 30 minutes. So, yeah, he was quite a character. So there were some interesting characters. The modern day miners were just like the old miners. We were all doing their own thing. Welshmen, and there you go. Well, I'm 59 years now, and when I started prospecting, I was 17. And between 17 and now, I can guarantee that I've spent at least 20 years in the bush full-time, prospecting and making a living at it. Found some big finds, found some small finds, had some lean times. There's a lot of lean times out there too. It wasn't all just gold, especially on the dredging. You know, you had to work hard to find spots. Gold's just not everywhere. You know, when I talk about these spots, but there's a lot of dead ground in between, trust me. But yeah, it would have been a good 20 years. And so yeah, you're out in the bush all the time. You know, you're underwater half the time. You're out there. There's not many people. You don't sort of interact, and it's weird because, like some people I know, you know, they have to have people to interact with. You know, like I've taken some friends out, you know, and it gets dark out in the bush, and you see they get the jitters, you know, like because they're not meant to be out there. There's no lights, no power. They're not used to it, and I, on the other hand, I was out there for years, you know, like, you know, by myself. You know, you have to be, I suppose, to do this. You've got to be, you know, a person that can quite comfortably just, you know, be alone and, you know, be happy and content with that. Because, and I was, you know, I just loved it, you know, learned a little bit more about gold or, but yeah, and yeah, you know, I was sort of week on, week out, week in town, stock up supplies, back out again. And when I used to come to Dan, it was like, wow, you know, it's like, all these people rushing everywhere and they're doing this, and I'm like, it's like a different world you're living in when you're prospecting. It's just, yeah, it's just the freedom. It's, yeah, if I could ever come back in an afterlife, I'd like to come back in 1852. Well, actually, yeah, 1852. That would be ideal for me. I would have loved to live in the gold days. And if I did come back in 1852, the first thing I'd do was I'd go to Malagal to that monument. Then I'd go to Kingower to behind the old school. Might nip down to Ballarat. There's a hill I might think of looking at. And just down the road I might go to a little gully with a bit of a test hole in it. And then I'd have a real easy life. But yeah, so yeah, I'm lucky to have done it. Yeah, the dredging was fantastic, you know, but unfortunately they banned it in 1990, around thereabouts. So a great way of prospecting you could no longer do. And that was a real shame. If it was legal tomorrow, I wouldn't be here tomorrow. I'd be up there. Because with the gold price as it is, which is 4 times what it was when I was doing it, it would be pretty lucrative.